Good afternoon, everybody. I was going to be wearing an earpiece, but they said I had to get it off Craig, and that would have been a full-scale fight, I think, to get anything off him after his performance here today. Mine will be, I am a parliamentarian, so we're used to that sort of behaviour in Parliament, but I haven't seen it at a conference for a very long time. Anyway, it's great to be here, and I shall be very brief because I know you're running a little bit behind schedule. I'm being asked to talk about the global scene, the global political scene, and how it will apply to Bitcoin, AI, and blockchain. If you look at the current global scene, one thing that is certain throughout is that nobody is able to control, or no government is able to control the pace of blockchain, AI, or Bitcoin. They're not able to challenge or control the pace of cybersecurity, even though they pretend they are. And so we have this great global community and global development, financial development that is going on beyond the control of most governments. And it is therefore bound to dominate the political and business sphere for the next few years. An uncontrollable prospect against governments which they themselves have all got internal problems. And if we survey the global scene, and most of you are familiar now, if you're not, with what's going on in the UK, we have a whole range of disruptions that are going on and a whole range of change of the dynamics in the political world. And they're happening very quickly. Only last week did Trump effectively withdraw support from America to the Middle East. And it's not just Syria, but it is the whole of the Middle East. They have given up on the battle against Iran. They have given up in the support of the Syrian borders, and they're allowing Russia now to fill that vacuum within the Middle East. And I have just returned this morning from breakfast with the chief advisor to the ruler of the UAE, where he is in despair because his normal ally, America, and to a certain extent the United Kingdom, is effectively saying, we've done enough in this region, it's uncontrollable, you've now got to sort it out for yourselves. So you'll find a change in attitude in Saudi Arabia, UAE, to Iran. The difference of the Muslim sects will start to, I think, soften and become more cooperative and collaborative over the next 10 years, because that's what they're going to be forced into. But isn't it amazing that it is now Russia who is calling the shots in that part of the world? Russia, of course, is not a democracy. It is a dictatorship. The fact is that Russia are now taking control of a region, fact, whether you like it or not. Secondly, you have China. China have set out an extraordinary, visionary approach to how they want to dominate the world through their One Road, One Belt initiative. This is a very focused approach. They have been gradually buying or creating the ports across the world. They have been doing this in a twofold approach, one by debt, in other words, lending money to the country, and the other by equity, by helping build the port, but only paying for half of it themselves. The net result of this is that they now control most of the ports throughout the world. They have a road and rail network system that allows them to access the port, whether it be in Pakistan or whether it be in Jamaica. And they have, because of the debt aspect of their commitment to those countries, they now have even greater control. And if you take Jamaica, Jamaica have been unable to pay their interest payments on their debt. In return, Russia have taken 300 acres of land for failure to pay the first installment, and they're about to take another 300 acres for failure to pay the second installment. But this is a visionary approach with a very clear route to where China wants to be. What are China? They're a dictatorship. They are not a democracy. and therefore, between Russia and China now, we will have a real challenge to the global situation. Everything that we in the West have been brought up to believe in, elections, democracy, freedom of speech, the parliament, a vote of the people, is now being challenged. And we will question in the next 10 years whether we want to be part of a democracy or whether we want to be part of a dictatorship or a regime that controls the nations. The United States, the greatest democracy in the world, so they would claim, is in a mess. It was going forward very positively. It had said enough is enough to China, so we're going to have our tariffs and impose restrictions on China because they have been abusing the democratic process that we have adopted, the rule of law, the transparency of business, the lack of corruption that we endorse in business. They have said enough is enough. And had they carried on with their determined line in the Middle East, they would have been able to control or have a much greater say in the global network. But they're now failing to do that because of this retreat. And advantage, as I have said earlier, will be taken. We then move to Europe, which we all know is in a mess. It isn't just because the UK is leaving or planning to leave Europe, which has, in a sense, been an incredible democratic upheaval, where the vote of the people has overrun the vote of Parliament. But if you look at Europe now, the old businesses, particularly in Germany, are in decline. As we all know, many of you will have electric cars. The fundamentals are that there are 7,000 components go into a combustion car, whereas only 700 go into an electric car. And if you can imagine the knock-on effect to Germany of it only having a tenth of its businesses in the supply chain to the car industry, you will see that the future is very bleak now for Germany as it tries to adjust from the old technologies to the new technologies. Add to the fact that their two main banks are technically bust because they haven't complied with the European strictures in terms of refinancing banks. They have a significant problem, and we are about to see, I would predict, the end of the German boom that we have enjoyed, and therefore the engine room, which Germany has been for years, of Europe is about to decline, and the knock-on effect will be quite considerable. So Brexit in itself, yes, is the UK saying, for the first time since the Reformation, we want to exit our relationships with Europe because we don't like the domination that Europe is having over our own country, which is exactly the same thing Henry VIII did, by the way. He dressed it up as a religious war rather than an economic war. We have the fact that Italy is in recession and in decline. We have the fact that Germany is now officially in recession because it's had 2 quarters of recession. We now know that France is going to have a debt to GDP of 100%, which is huge by French standards by the end of the year. And so we have an economic crisis in the Western world. So how does this affect this great audience here? Well, the great audience, and you as participants in this new form of technology, have got a massive opportunity because in the end it will be business, entrepreneurs, creatives who will develop the world for us. And the only message I have to you as you end this conference is try and do it as responsibly as possible. It is possible to do this responsibly. It's very difficult to do things responsibly when you're at the cutting edge of it. But I, having started many businesses myself, know that in the end, that unless you can persuade your customers that you are doing responsibility, it won't have the traction of the future. But you are the future. You are the future of the world economy because you have built a network that every nation aspires to, of that of communication cross-border, trade across-border, activity across-border, which governments are unable to achieve. So thank you very much.
Superb. Thank you, Lord Marland, much appreciated.